Hey, welcome to the program, folks. Today, I am excited to welcome the very talented Kim Kleeman. Hi, Kim. How are you?
Good. Thanks, Barbara. Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, I'm more than happy to have you on the show. And, I've been listening to your morning inspirational messages. So I thought it was really important to have you on the show today to share some interesting things and observations that you have had and that you've shared with a bunch of folks, and really helping folks along the way. So I'm really excited to have you. I think the timing is amazing and perfect and all that stuff, but I know there's a lot more to you than that. And so we met at your event through the Inner Circle, right?
Yes.
And yeah, so we have a mutual amazing superstar friend called Sarah, and thank you. You brought me in. I got to close your day of wonderful speakers. So thank you for trusting me that way. That was a big trust.
You were wonderful.
But it was clear that you have surrounded yourself with a lot of incredible, amazing people. And there's a reason for that, because you're very talented and skilled, and I know you've helped a lot of people. So I just want to give folks a little bit of background on you, and then I'll give you a moment to share a little bit about yourself, because you've got a pretty impressive background. And you've got some recognitions that a lot of people don't have that I think is really important for people to know about you. So you specialize in growth for companies, and I know you really focus on like a small, medium entrepreneurial company, because that is your history and that's your love and your passion. So I know you focus really strongly on that and beautifully at it. But man, you have made the list of top women in digital marketing, Chicago Crain's 40 under 40. That's just insane. And you landed your first company on the Inc. 500 list. Wow. So you really understand how to take businesses and create success from them. I mean, you truly get that. So you use a lot of tools. You are into tech acceleration. You're the co-founder of the Inner Circle Network with your sister, Joy, who is equally as lovely as you are. And you surround yourself with a lot of business professionals, and you're always networking and sharing and doing a lot of really interesting things within the community. So that's my introduction of you, but what do you want us to know about you?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, Barbara. And it was so great that you came and spoke to us at the summit. And so first and foremost is I'm an entrepreneur. I grew up in a family of business owners in the bakery business, and I started my first business out of necessity. How do I have the life that I want to live? And luckily in my DNA, I had some of those original skill sets sort of baked in.
Yeah.
And a lot of what I do now with Accelerate Successfully is that I am focused on impacting as many small businesses as I can. I'm trying to help them use a formula that I've seen again and again in business work to bring companies or leaders to the next level. And so, that is one of my passions, and my mission is to help in companies all over the world, all over the country,
Sure.
to excel. But here in Chicago specifically, we started the Inner Circle. So it's no surprise, my older brother owns his own businesses. My sister owns her own business. So we, decided that it made sense to try and pull specifically my network, which was very unique with marketing and tech and real estate together, and pull that into an organization called the Inner Circle, where
Sure.
we bring business to business members together to basically rise together. Our motto is we are collaborative, not competitive, because we believe that there's plenty of business for everybody.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm up to.
Well, that's fantastic. And I see that, you impact people every day. So it's a beautiful thing to see. You talked about wanting to be, you wanted a certain lifestyle. So you knew that you needed to have, a role in life that would allow you to have that lifestyle. What was it that you were looking for in your lifestyle that you wanted to to actually, like, how did you want to live? Like, why did you choose this? You
Yeah.
could live like, what does that look like?
It's a great question. So I watched my parents who did not have college degrees build up businesses, have 5 kids, put them through private schools, live
Wow.
in an affluent suburb. And so I come from a very unique set of people who make something from nothing. And that I thought everybody did that. And then it turns out that that was this, this very unique thing.
Yeah.
So I started to teach, and my husband, who is still a teacher, we realized we weren't really going to be able to pay for daycare or buy a house in the suburb that we wanted to. Like some very simple things that when people say, like, oh, a teacher doesn't make a lot of money, you go, oh, I get it. I'm doing it. I love the kids. And
Right.
then you start to have your own children and you realize, like, who's going to be there for them?
Right.
And so I had the skill set to go and turn that into creating my first business, which essentially was me hiring my teacher friends to write textbooks. So I was really pretty entrepreneurial right at the beginning of that. And I loved teaching. I left it. And then I hired a lot of my former students. So I got a chance to train up my students in the workforce as well, which was pretty cool.
Oh, that's really cool. So
Yeah.
what was it that you were doing that got you recognized as a Crane's 40 under 40? What was that they were focusing on?
Sure. So I tell a great story that when I was at the Be Legendary conference, thank you for having me, by the way.
Great to have you.
I
I
spoke,
loved you.
thank you. I spoke about how I got to the Inc. 500, which was that I was really applying for the Inc. 5000. It was the first time it was offered, Inc. magazine. And really, I didn't believe that I made the 500. I thought I made 5,000, 4,999 maybe. And it turned out that we were number 5 in education.
Wow.
And that I was so shocked that when they interviewed me on the phone, Inc. magazine ended up doing a whole separate interview about my crazy family and my life and all of that. And it's a great article that I still love. Uh, Crain's got wind of that, and then when nominations started coming in, I was heavily nominated. I don't know by whom, but I was sort of a very young entrepreneur, and I was a female, and I was a mom. I was all these
Yeah.
things that people thought, like, no, there's no way you could start a business with all these, elements.
Right.
But nobody was going to tell me that.
Yeah.
So the Crane's 40 under 40, I was named it, and unfortunately, my older brother was a little jealous. He didn't get that honor. Talk about some competitive sibling moments, but he was like, "You
Wow.
got that 40 under 40," and you know. But I don't worry, he made the Cranes Fast 50, so he's doing just fine.
Awesome.
So it was really
What
cool to be
a great
named that.
story.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a great story.
yeah. Thank you.
So what is it that, what is it that you see in other businesses that make you want to help them? And what do you see that people are doing or not doing? Like, what gets you jazzed up when you talk to someone like me or someone who's got a business that makes you want to help them?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, my expertise lies sort of in the top line growth, so sales and marketing. I'm able to kind of look at a business, figure out what their strategies and their revenue model are, and then help them to create some plans on how to grow. And I think that's something that I just naturally think about. I'm really creative in my thinking,
Mhm.
and so I'm bringing ideas. I read a lot as a former English teacher. I read a lot, so I'm constantly going, oh, I saw this over here. What would it work over here?
Sure.
And because I
Yeah.
didn't grow up in constructs of like, this is your job and this is your role,
Yeah.
I am able to sort of think very, very broadly about things and
Sure.
then distill it down really quickly. And so that's typically what I bring to companies is, have you tried
Sure.
this? Here's how this would work. Here's how I've seen it
Sure.
done. And typically that's going to help a company to pivot or to get to the next level by just a creative idea that they
Sure.
implement. So that's a lot of what I bring to the
Sure.
table. And then the connections, because listen, we all need power partners, and we all need mentors, and we all need staff and future employees. And so because I'm just a very extroverted extrovert, I've,
Yes, you are.
collected a lot of really I really am. That I've collected a lot of really cool people along the way that I match up strategically. But that got to be overwhelming. So we had to put it into an actual community to build that up. And luckily my sister Joy that you mentioned, who is lovely, she's much more process oriented than I am. And so she helps to keep that thing running.
Yeah. Well, you guys are a great partnership, and we, working alongside you with the different events, we definitely see what a great partnership it is. So it's wonderful that you can do that with your sister. And not only that, you seem like you really like each other, and that's always a benefit too.
Oh yeah, she's a best friend, that's for sure. It's been really hard with everything going on to not be able to see her and
Oh, that's, yeah,
talk to her, and
yeah.
all those things. So I think it's given us some newfound gratitude for each other.
I bet, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you talk about working with businesses, is there one thing that you see most businesses doing that blocks them from moving forward in a positive direction?
Sure. I mean, listen, business is not stagnant. It moves forward or it moves backwards. And we're in some unprecedented times. So we're trying to figure out how to move forward when it feels like we're sort of in molasses or in mud. And that's the biggest challenge I think there is. So right now, I just launched a 15-day challenge starting this Friday
Awesome.
in order to just keep people from staying stuck, that even
Yeah,
small goals feel super productive right now. So I'm trying to help businesses understand ways to communicate, ways to take opportunity without seeming opportunistic. Much
sure.
of that is communications and marketing, and we only just have to look at some of what's happened in the press lately of companies who may have taken money from funding, who may have given it back, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Reputationally, there's all these things happening
yeah,
that are perception
yeah.
based and maybe not even really the reality of what was happening. And
Right.
so you really have to be aware for your company on how you're marketing and messaging right now. So those are kind of the places that I help, besides brand new services or pricing and packaging, where you
Sure.
might need to really think about the way that you're putting your offer out there right now,
Yeah.
which may be different than you were doing 3 months ago.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You talked about power partners. Describe power partners and what's important about that relationship.
Sure. So my belief on power partners is that it's a two-way street. That what you look for as a entrepreneur or a business development professional is you're looking for somebody who's going to help you build a pipeline of opportunities, so that what happens over maybe 3 to 5 years of building up strong power partners is that you are going to have people that when you're ready for new business, you just have to check in with them, or they're sending you steady work going. But those power partners are really difficult to figure out who's the best for you. And there's a little bit of trial and error. But let's say that you're in real estate and you're an agent. Then
Hmm.
you already know that some of your power partners are part of the sales process:
Yeah.
mortgage brokers, insurance agents, the title company, the
Yes.
real estate attorney. There's a lot of people involved within that process.
Yeah.
And the more that you can develop power partners within that process, the more that they're going to recommend you and bring people to you as
Yeah.
well. And suddenly, if you have 3 to 5 power partners like that, you won't have to go out and search for new business. Like you can't find it anywhere.
Right.
You just have to call 3 or 5 people
Right.
to sort of get more business churned up for you to look at.
I think
So
that's
that's
really,
how I look at a
yeah,
power partner.
that's a great example. And I think the real estate really is the epitome of being able to easily show power partners, because, once you build that trust, it almost becomes your own little private community, because they're going to get the work done for you, and you're going to have a good, satisfied customer, as opposed to solving problems or trying to reduce conflict. So those power partners are really, they're not short term. They're really can be very long term relationships.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the key here is that you're picking some people that you can trust.
Yeah.
So that means that they support you if something goes wrong, they have your back and they help to work out the problem. It might mean that they speak highly of you and recommend you
Sure.
as word of mouth. And they frankly help you collect. I mean, right now, one of the biggest challenges is collecting on dollars that are out there. And your power partners may have better access to somebody than you do. So there's lots
Sure.
of reasons why a long-term relationship makes sense. But here's the truth. The truth is that most people think power partners is a one-way street. You bring me
Yeah.
referrals and I thank you very much for that,
Yeah.
right? Or I give you a commission for that or
Yeah.
something. That's just leads. That's not actually power partners.
Yeah.
And so it's really important that you're understanding when you look at the most successful people in, you know, consultative sales, they are not out there having to search high and low for
Right.
clients because they just call their power partners and put on an event or ask for a
Exactly.
lunch or
Yeah.
one of those ways that just signals that there's business to be done.
Well, and let's face it, it's about building a relationship with somebody. Yeah.
Yes,
And I would, the way you're talking, I would assume some of these power partners may become friends over a long period of time also.
I hope so. I mean, listen, business associates become family friends, become
Yeah.
the people that over the years have your back.
You bet.
They may be your attorney, your CPA. It might be somebody who's brought you the biggest deal of your life, and
Right.
you'll always want to repay them. It might be the person with the most random network, but it gives you an opportunity to talk to some new people. And so
Sure.
that's really the great part about it is that hopefully you work with people who have similar core values to what you have.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's, you hit on it. It's about having similar core values. Because it is really hard to align with someone when the values, even though you may be in the same business, if your values are so distinctly different, it is very difficult to build that relationship with people, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I have a good example of that where I was involved in a transaction with a bank and a real estate deal. And one of the people, the bank made a mistake, and it was clear that we could have gone back and gotten and made more money than we wanted to. And one side of the transaction party wanted to do that, and one side said, "Hey, listen, we could make an extra X amount of dollars on this transaction. But
Mhm.
if the bank looks at that later on and sees that we took advantage, or
Yeah.
just even that we know our own integrity was compromised just for a couple thousand extra dollars or whatever it is that really worth it?" And
Right.
those are the people you want to align yourselves with, are
Yeah.
people in which they say, nobody's watching and I'm still going to do the right thing here.
Yeah, that's exactly the truth, right? And I kind of wonder right now, you mentioned, some examples of how things are now in the news where companies are maybe not making the right decisions and some are making really powerful, positive decisions. Do you think that that's something that we're going to be facing more and more of over the next couple of months, of seeing those who are making maybe not so good decisions in the eye of opportunity or in the eye of survival? Do you think we're going to see more of that coming out?
It will be very interesting to see what the government does with more funding. I mean, it's obvious that we are going to need this. We're going to need it much longer.
Yeah.
I was in a meeting today in which, Q3 and Q4 are being talked about, and like, what's the recovery and those months look like. So
Right.
as we look out on this, I do think, unfortunately, all eyeballs are on social media and the news right now. We have nothing else really to do. We're
Yeah.
all home.
Yeah.
And so it's very, very important for companies to think about how they're communicating and be as transparent as possible, but also save themselves from some painful PR moments here. And so, if there's an investment that I would recommend at this point, it would be to make sure that your employees are understanding and are with you at this time, and that they're not against you at this time,
Wow.
because you
Yeah.
just need one disgruntled employee to go on Glassdoor or go on
Yeah.
social media or go to the media And
Yeah.
so I've seen some HR companies come out with employee hotlines that if management wants to keep tabs on it and fix the problems internally, they can,
Sure.
rather than that spilling out into
Yeah.
because I've heard people say, I'm not going to forget which companies did this. I'm not going
Yep.
to forget
That's right.
which companies did that. And
Right.
that makes me think that people are taking notes.
They
They're
are.
watching.
Mhm. They are.
Yeah.
And there on the other flip side of that, from my HR background, what we also know is when these times are really tough, and I don't know how many millions of people we have filing for unemployment right now, but you're going to have a handful of jobs, and you're going to have thousands, if not multiple thousands, of people applying for those few jobs. And so companies are going to feel like they have, a little bit of edge on what's happening out there because they've got those few jobs. But you're right. All things come to neutral eventually. And then do you want to be known as that company who has made good choices or not in the long run?
I think you bring up a really good point. I mean, certainly for me, laying people off was one of the hardest things I ever did in my life. And I had to do it in '08. And it was friends and it was coworkers, people I'd worked with for 10 years. And I tried to be as honest as I could during that process. But there's usually larger narratives at play that you may fall privy to. At the
Yeah.
time in '08, it was that all CEOs were evil, and it didn't matter if you were making, $25,000 as a
Yep.
CEO or
Yep.
$25 million. You were sort
Exactly.
of in that bucket, and
Yep.
that was uncomfortable, right?
Yep.
And so now it's, what's small business? If you look at the rules and the guidelines of the word small business, it is a very big definition.
Yep.
And so a lot of the bad press is sometimes just a narrative versus the reality that, those companies were actually maybe keeping people on because they got that funding, and that
Right.
was keeping them from laying off another 300 people, or
Right.
there's a
Exactly.
lot of that back end stuff. And then let's be honest, companies are changing strategies, and so they
Right.
may let go of an entire department because that's not the strategy moving forward to 2021. And
Yeah.
there may be a strategy for something new, and so they might fire over here and hire over here, and it
Exactly.
looks to the layperson like it makes no sense, but that's
Yep.
because there are people inside trying to save a company, right?
Exactly, exactly. It's a really tough position to be in because you also can't lay your hands out on the table because there's, competitive issues with that as well. So there's a lot at stake for so many. These times are really trying for a lot of people, but for leaders who have now everyone's looking to you to do something magnificent to save the day. What do you think some of the greatest qualities of the leaders who are successfully leading right now are showing to be?
So this is a really great question because I did a speech last year to Northwestern's postdoctoral symposium, and these are all, really, really smart biopharma medical students, and
Yeah,
they are going out into the world and leading, right?
yeah,
Major changes. And we talked a lot about leadership. I go back to some fundamental things here. What are the positive character traits of your favorite leaders, your
yeah,
favorite teachers, your favorite bosses? And a lot of times those traits that make us smile are the traits that we need to be putting out there. We need to be, and I talk about this, we need to be curious, we need to be listeners, we
yeah,
need to be innovative and ingenious, a little clever right now.
yeah,
And so some of the skills that come out in leadership right now have to do with being articulate and being a good communicator, but they are also about being a visionary and being able to see ahead. Uh, but being able to admit fault and listen, leaders are just a couple steps ahead of everybody else. They don't really
yeah,
actually know, right?
yeah.
And
Exactly.
so it's really important that you admit fault or you be as honest as you can so that you're not seen as being hypocritical. The minute that people start to think that you're disingenuous is
Yeah.
the minute that you turn around and nobody's following you anymore. You're not a
Right.
leader. Everybody bailed behind you.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that. When I was writing my first book and interviewing global HR leaders, by asking about leadership, and one woman who she's been in these incredible companies and worked with all kinds of leaders, she said, people don't understand that being a leader, it's really the crappiest job in the world. And the reason it's the crappiest job in the world is because everything that you do is evaluated or discussed, or whether it's the decision or the way you walk or the way you talk or the words you choose. So I'm not saying leadership is the crappiest job in the world, but it is a very challenging job, as you're saying. And during these times, all of those things that you listed, oh my gosh, talk about being put on a pedestal. And where they say the emperor has no robes, I mean, you're out there and everyone's seeing everything. And it's really, I'm sure, challenging for them because they're trying to save the company. They're trying to pivot in the new world because oh my gosh. Here's a question for you, Kim. What do you think the new
Yeah.
world's going to look like?
You know, it's really interesting because I think that there's some really fresh perspectives. CEOs who are home with their young kids and seeing
Yeah.
what a day with kids is like,
Yeah.
or maybe even are in a household in which it's really tough to stay in an environment of focus, right? That every 15 minutes somebody needs something. And so uh, I think that there's going to be a new normal around the work from home. And I
Yeah.
don't know what that means because we have a lot of buildings and real estate and all that, but they may become more community driven or in-house a couple days a week and that stuff. E-learning in '08 went through a major transition,
Yeah.
but now we're starting to understand what is really, there are certain learners we're missing here.
Yeah.
Kinesthetic learners, visual learners, people who need to interact with others.
Yeah.
So we're having a little bit of an understanding of what e-learning for children looks like. We already
Yeah.
knew about it, and we're doing it for adults pretty well. As far as the rest of it goes, I do think we're in store for a little bit of a recession here.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for almost everybody to be thinking that whatever you think is right, whatever you're in right now, you're only 3 months out from something else, one quarter,
Right. Yeah.
because we just have no control over some things like whether or not our city is in lockdown or
Right.
what's considered an essential or a non-essential business.
Yeah.
And even with those, what happens when you have an employee that is tested positive? So
Right.
I've heard that handshaking will go away, that we'll
Yeah.
never have that again.
Yeah.
That was interesting to me. I'm a hugger, so I
Yeah.
don't know if
I
I want
know,
hugging
me
to go
too.
away.
Like, don't touch
Uh,
me.
I know. And so that's going to be interesting. It might be a slow roll, but I see people forget it so easily. I mean, you just go out
Right.
and you see that people think they're being good, but they just don't
Right.
necessarily even really know what that means in the
Right.
long run. So I
You know,
don't know. It's going to be very
yeah.
strange.
I was getting ready to order new business cards, and I'm like, oh, who's going to want to touch a business card anymore? Like, are we going to hand out business cards? Like, or are we going to have gloves when we touch business cards and take our gloves off at the end? So all these things that we never used to think about are now all a part of this new normal. And I think you're right. We'll probably forget about some of it and we'll make jokes about it to ease the fear and the uncertainty. But I'll be really curious to talk, a year from now and say, wow, do you remember when we were talking about what would happen? What it looks like.
I mean, if anybody that's listening is a writer, this is a great time to try and, just journal down your thoughts and
Yeah.
keep track of it because this is unprecedented, and we will have changes that come out of this, just like 9/11, or '08,
Yeah.
that are going to change us forever, right? And we're
Absolutely.
not sure what that looks like yet, but I have a feeling it has to do with another vaccination that we'll all have to get regularly.
Probably. I always say, I am really interested to see what Harvard Business Review is going to be doing with this, because they take all these situations and write case studies on them, and this will be fascinating. There's going to be so many case studies come out of this. It's going to be absolutely fascinating.
I would agree.
So what's a common advice that you're giving your clients right now?
So, taking a look at their situation and understanding the environment they're in, it usually means that I'm asking them some deep down questions about revenue. What do they need? What are they doing with their teams? How can they move forward in a way that is graceful and looks effortless, but is actually a lot of work, right? So Pivot Up is all about moving to the next level, accelerating successfully. Pivot Up is a workshop that I've given for years to startups. And Accelerate Successfully is really about taking that and really getting yourself to a place where when you want to put the gas pedal on your business, you can. And so that means being ready. The biggest advice I'm giving right now is to try and use, if you have the luxury of time on your hands. So anybody who is a young parent and is trying to deal with kids and e-learning and all that, they're just white knuckling it right now.
Right, yeah.
And I just say, just try to survive. But if you have time, this is a great time to look at your 2020 goals and work on some of those projects that you have that you probably pushed till the end of the year or maybe the summer when it wasn't going to be as busy, and work on those. So that's marketing, and it's usually tightening up processes, maybe looking at some new software or technologies to invest in. Not because you're necessarily going to pull the trigger right now, but because you have the time to do the research.
Right.
So that's really it. I call it B time. Your A time is when you're out there and you're making everything work. And your B time is something that you can prioritize right now. And you will feel very productive coming out of this if you do some of that.
Yes. And as we all know, 2008, the impact of 9/11, and in other times, those that do what you're saying to do and are ready to accelerate whatever it is they can accelerate now are typically the folks that will come out not only ahead, but way far ahead when things start settling down. So you want to be on the cusp of that. And, hopefully all your clients and all the folks we know are doing all of that. I don't think all of them are, but it would be great if they all were, so that we could all just jump into the outcome of this and just put the gas on the pedal and go.
Well, the fear is what holds a lot of people back. And there's different fears I'm hearing. Fear of trying to talk to your clients and seem salesy or opportunistic right now is a big fear. And so a lot of businesses are on pause because they think, well, I don't want to call somebody and ask them for their money right now. And I try to remind people that families are making all kinds of decisions right now of what's most important or where they should be spending their money. Not every family is struggling. Not every family is in dire straits. And so when you're thinking about who your customer base is, go for the ones that would probably be more open to hearing or be open to strategic, home projects or whatever right now, right? I think that's one fear, is the fear of that. I think the second fear is the fear that you're going to try something and fail right now. And what I say to that is, it's the best time. Nobody's going to remember. I mean, we're all going through stuff. So nobody's really watching that closely. And so if you make a mistake on your podcast or your Facebook live stream or your email had a typo, like literally, it's not going to matter in the long run.
Right, exactly. I think that's really good advice. So step into the fear and just do it. And 75, 80% is okay right now, because we don't have time to evaluate like we used to.
And you're going to look like a superhero if you can put 80% output right now. Really. Right. And so for me, this is a great time. This is where I get into creative mode. But for a lot of people, it's also really, really difficult for them to get into creative mode. And so there's all kinds of tools. I talk a lot about that in my daily Facebook lives. you know, 8:45 in the morning to just kind of get us set for the day. But that's really all around the tools we need to actually move ourselves forward, even if it's really small.
Yeah.
I think it's really important.
Oh, I agree. And one of the things I tell people all the time, my clients, is get outside and go for a walk. Like just get out of the
Mm,
house and get into nature. There's something just, it doesn't matter if it's raining or snowing like it's been here, or the sun is out or the wind is blowing, but there's a meditative experience about getting out into nature and putting your phone away and just watching the birds or watching the clouds. And I find for a lot of my folks, that helps them just to kind of settle their mind, their body, their soul, just kind of come to center. What is something that you ask or you recommend your folks are doing on your calls?
yep. I think a morning routine is really important, and Monday through Friday is different than the weekend. And
Yeah.
so if you find yourself like, what day is it? And, you know, I'm calling it, you know, I'm looking at it as that you need to know what your intended purpose for the day is.
Yeah.
And I don't care if it's one thing. I'm gonna answer that important email. I'm gonna check in with that one person. I really one thing, and your day feels pretty productive.
Yeah.
So I speak to the morning routine because I'm an early riser. And so I'm sorry to all the night owls, but you probably can figure out a night routine that works for
Yeah.
you. But it includes some of the things you're talking about. It
Yeah.
includes, you know, for me, it's a cup of tea. It's like first
Yeah.
and foremost. And then it's some gratitude, journaling, or meditation. There is scientific, and I know you know this because I've heard you speak about this, but there's scientific proof that if you reset your mind at the beginning of the day rather than going onto Facebook or into your email, you
Yeah.
will have a better day, right? You will
Absolutely.
have more positive things happen to you because you aren't running that tape at the back of your head. And listen, everybody has that. I
Yeah.
didn't realize until I went through some pretty traumatic stuff during the '08 shift that I started to realize that unless I got control of my mental health there, I was not going to be the mom, the wife, the friend,
That's
the
right.
person I wanted to be.
That's
So my
right.
morning routine also includes either a workout or a walk or
Yeah.
some outside watching the birds, and then of course, you know, having a chance to check in with my family before I start my day.
Sure.
So that's all within an hour, you know,
Yeah.
hour and a half that I'm doing that.
Yeah.
If you have 30 minutes, pick one or two of those. But
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying is that an intended purpose each day will give you a little bit more structure and boundaries to what we're all going through.
It also sounds like some intentional self-care.
Yes.
Yeah. Which
Very
is so critical.
important.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah, because there's a lot of sadness going on right now and
yeah.
loss. So
Yeah.
we really do have to make sure we're acknowledged. Well, I'm not one to throw pity parties, but you do have to let yourself have the days to cry, right? Those are important too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And people are grieving. I mean, people are actually going through the stages of grief as they go through every day. And I think to recognize that and to have empathy and to be willing to support as you can with that.
Yep.
Absolutely. So what is something that we haven't spoken about, Kim, that you think that is important to share with the listeners today?
Hmm. So, you know, one thing I do want to say is that, you know, we're all leaders, whether that's in your family or it's in a community online or it's to your parents who, you know, might be trying to sneak out because they don't believe
Yeah.
that they need to, you know, stay safe right now. Whatever it is, this is the time where if you're finding yourself not being the kind of leader you want to be, stop, write down those leadership qualities that you aspire to, and just try each week to focus on one of those traits. A
Sure.
lot of those traits are what are born out of these difficult times.
Yeah.
They are not anything that we are given as a gift at our birth. And
Right.
so I try to remember that everybody is carrying a burden right now, and
Yes.
so we can be leaders in many, many very small ways. And then the other thing is to be a helper. And that one is just more of a personal core value. But if there's a way that you can get groceries for somebody, if there's a way you can help a family, if there's a way that you can pass a resume on, I think that the more that we focus on others and help them, the better off we are when we come out of this.
Yeah. Acts of kindness. I call that acts of kindness. Goes a long
Oh,
way.
I love it.
Acts of
Yes.
kindness.
And your
Yeah.
your Be Legendary conference, you had the coin, and
The gratitude coin. Yeah.
I will tell you that I've been holding on to that coin, and I was originally thinking of somebody out in the community.
Yeah.
And I know this is an awe moment, but I really think I'm going to be giving that one to my husband, who has just been
Oh,
a great
awesome.
partner during all of this.
That's
I'm super
fantastic.
grateful for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I have to tell you, someone brought up, I was speaking with someone yesterday, and she said the gratitude coin, she goes, you have no idea that that coin has been traveling, because the whole intention is to give it and, to share it, have someone receive it and share it and receive. So it's that constant movement. So that coin has traveled from person to person to person. I'm like, that's the whole intention of it, right? Is to have that positive impact. So I love that story. So it's been was delighted to hear that for sure. But so thank you for bringing that up. That was one of my dreams that I had in my list of dreams that I wanted to do. So that was fun.
Really
So
cool.
one last question for you.
Okay.
So you do a lot. You're creative. You've got family. You've got businesses. You've got good relationships and connections. What is it that makes you want to get up in the morning and get the day going?
Good question. I mean, honestly, I love working. I really do. And I've always said this, like, I don't know what I would do if I wasn't working. I'm a great mom, but I can do that while I pursue my own passion. I'm finding that a lot of my joy is coming out of writing right now, where I'm able to communicate things. And so I've really gotten back into a writing community, and I've been going to some writing retreats. And so when I'm thinking about like laying in bed and I'm tired and I don't want to go to work, the very first thing I think about is like, what is work? That I get up and I write about really cool stuff, or that I get to, put on a Facebook Live and, dance around to my own ideas.
Yeah.
So I think having designed my life the way I have has given me the ability to, I don't want to say jump out of bed, but I certainly am not one. I don't ever press the snooze button. Actually, I don't even have an alarm. I just wake up. Right. So, that's the thing that I cherish the most about the morning.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Well, Kim, this has been just a wonderful time spent with you, and appreciate all of your insights. And you're always willing to share your experiences and information, which is so helpful for everyone to learn from you. How would people get in touch with you if they wanted to learn more?
Sure. So I have a really great Facebook page, Accelerate Successfully.
Yes,
and
it is.
that group,
It's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. That group is open right now. So anybody is able to come find me at Accelerate Successfully on Facebook and join in and come see me Monday through Friday doing motivational and inspirational stuff at 8:45. Another way is that they can reach out to me, kim.kleeman at acceleratesuccessfully.com. I do offer one-on-one coaching. We do have group coaching that's coming, and I have the 15-day challenge that's about to come up. So I have lots of ways to motivate externally for people if they'd like to have some of that.
That's fantastic. Well, Kim, thank you so much for joining the program, and thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with everyone today.
Thank you, and thanks so much for putting this show on. It's wonderful.
Thank you. We'll chat soon.